Okay, folks, while you continue to enjoy your dinner, I'm going to go ahead and announce our student oral and poster award winners this evening. So I'm going to just ask you if you will humor us here for a little while and be sure to applause for these young folks in our midst. They've worked really hard to get to this conference, to put together presentations, and you know, just by witness of last night's poster session, really are very serious in wanting to present their research, their work to all of you. It was just really inspiring last night to watch you all interact with one another. So, without further ado, I'd like to announce the award winners of the poster presentation. And if you are an award winner, if you'd please come make your way to the stage, and I will be happy to present you with your certificate. And then when you're done, if you could maybe gather here at the bottom of the steps. I know we'd love to catch a photo of all of us together. Okay, the third place poster winner is Diana Bolton. Diana's poster title is Genetic Diversity of the Federally Endangered Avon Park Harebells in Ex situ and Natural Populations. Diana? Okay, Diana. All right, no Diana. Okay. Pardon? Okay. And Diana may have just stepped out for a moment. So our second place winner is Megan Dornbush. Megan's title of her poster was Mixed Grass Vegetation, Response to Grazing Management Strategies in Kentucky's Bluegrass Invaded Pastures. Megan. And our first place award winner for the poster presentation is Melissa Daniels. Melissa's title? Oh. The title of Melissa's poster is Invasive Plant Response to Windstorm Forest Canopy Damage. Congratulations. Oh, congratulations. That's so nice. Okay, and our oral presentation award winners. Third place goes to Megan Dornbush. The title of Megan's oral presentation was Fuel Structure and Moisture Dynamics in a Kentucky Bluegrass Invaded Prairie. There you go, Megan. Congratulations again. Great job, great job. Second place to Kimberly Ordonez, using a psychological distance lens to examine family forest owners' perceptions. Kimberly? Congratulations. And our first place oral presentation award winner is Julia Rogers. The title of Julia's talk is The Impact of Forest Management on Edge Effect in Roadside Forests. Congratulations. Congratulations. There you go. Anybody that went back to their table, if you wouldn't mind coming up, we're going to grab a quick picture, and then I'll be back to introduce our next award. I'd like to now introduce the Carl N. Becker Award. The Natural Areas Association presents the Carl N. Becker Stewardship Award to individuals or groups in recognition of excellence and achievement in managing the natural resources of reserves, parks, wilderness, and other protected areas. It's given in honor of Carl N. Becker, former NAA president and conservation leader with the Illinois Endangered Species Protection Board, Illinois Department of Natural Resources, and the Illinois chapter of the Nature Conservancy. Carl brought leadership skills to all phases of his conservation career. He was an excellent field biologist, bureaucrat, and political thinker. He knew how to inspire his staff to work together to do more than they could possibly do on their own efforts. His skills benefited natural areas conservation locally, regionally, and nationally. Carl championed Illinois legislation dedicating a portion of the state real estate transfer tax to the Natural Areas Acquisition Fund that supports natural areas acquisition and stewardship and the operations of Illinois nature preserves, natural heritage, and endangered species programs, and for the Wildlife Preservation Fund income tax checkoff that conserves non-game wildlife and habitat. Carl was also a state and regional leader working with the Teaming with Wildlife Coalition to urge congressional approval in 2000 for the establishment of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service's State and Tribal Wildlife Grant Program, otherwise known as SWIG. During the first 13 years of the SWIG program, it has dedicated over $760 million to fish and wildlife conservation programs and projects across the nation. The recipient of the 2018 Carl N. Becker Stewardship Award is Joyce Bender. For over 3 decades, Joyce Bender directed stewardship for the Kentucky State Nature Preserves Commission, and under Joyce's leadership, the state nature preserve system in Kentucky grew from 18 to 63 preserves, today covering 28,000 acres. Some of Joyce's many achievements worthy of recognition are as follows. She developed the stewardship program for Kentucky State Natural Areas and managed it for 31 years. Joyce was a strong defender of nature preserves and an advocate for supporting legislation preventing horse and ORV trails on the preserves during a period of political assault on the preserve system. She played a key role in founding the Kentucky Prescribed Fire Council to promote and support the use of prescribed fire in Kentucky. And she was the first woman to lead a prescribed burn in the state of Kentucky. Woohoo! She's mentored both men and women who would go on to be leaders in fire management in other states. Starting in 1991, Joyce became a leader in building invasive plant awareness for Kentucky. She used the state's nature preserve system as demonstration sites for best practices and conducted invasive species outreach to innumerable audiences and interest groups. She was founding member of the Kentucky Exotic Pest Plant Council, serving as president for 11 years, and is currently vice president. She was also a founding member of the first vice president of the Southeast Exotic Pest Plant Council, as well as a member of the National Exotic Pest Plant Council. Joyce recognized the value of and put extraordinary efforts towards outreach on natural areas management techniques. She developed programs for Kentucky Educational TV about nature preserves and their value to the general public. She has been acknowledged by the Sierra Club for fostering and sustaining a 25-year relationship with their volunteers and by the Kentucky chapter of the Nature Conservancy for her contributions towards developing the TNC State Stewardship Program. Joyce received Naturalist of the Year honors from the Kentucky Society of Natural History and a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Kentucky Environmental Quality Commission. Joyce has been a member of the Natural Areas Association for 30 years and served on the Stewardship Committee for many years during the 1990s. One of her supporters for this award wrote, "No one has taken the care and stewardship of the nature preserves of Kentucky more to heart than Joyce Bender." Another wrote, "I had the privilege of working for Joyce when I was a young woman, not long out of college. Having such a strong female role model like Joyce at such an early stage in my career helped me build a foundation of no-nonsense professionalism and gender-neutral expectations. Joyce helped mentor me and countless others into our current professions. There are many who attribute their success to Joyce's guidance, environmental education, and land management practices. It is my pleasure to present the 2018 Carl N. Becker Award to Joyce Bender.
Thank you all so very much. I want to thank the Natural Areas Association for this beautiful award and for thinking of me in this way. I'm humbled before you all just to think that I'm getting this award. I've sat in that audience and watched people get it and think, wow, those people really have done a lot of things. And listening to that list, I've done a few things, I guess. This time, since I learned about receiving the award, has given me time to reflect, and many friends are in this audience, many people who guided my career, who were there for me, and I have to say that one thing I do want to make sure I say is that I want to thank Bob Mccants, and for those of you who know Bob, he was a stalwart of this organization for many years. And he gave me my start in 1980, and I'm very grateful for him taking that chance on me back then to say, yes, we want this woman to work for us at the Ohio Division of Natural Areas and Preserves. It gave me that start. And another person I must thank tonight is Mark Heitlinger, who worked for the Nature Conservancy, and again, took a chance on a young woman and sent her off to learn about how to lead prescribed fires. And thanks to Mark, that just lit that spark in me that is still burning bright. And those two men, took a chance on a young woman, and it's one of those things where you grab those opportunities and you take them. And what a ride it's been. I also want to thank all my former staff and colleagues at the Nature Preserves Commission and our volunteers who really made it possible. You can't stand up here and take this award and say you did it all by yourself. None of us can say that we work alone. Thank God there's all these wonderful people that support you and work with you, and it is a very, again, humbling experience to be somebody's boss or the leader of a project and have everybody pick up their tools and follow you and get it done. It's really an amazing feeling, and I know you all who do this know what I'm talking about. The Natural Areas Association was something I joined because I just really felt like, yeah, these are my people, my tribe, and this is who I want to be with. And in the days before Google, I had the Randys in Illinois, and I had John Bacone and others in the region to answer my questions and help me look at things and get the perspective. And where there is Google now, and you can find it in a heartbeat, you don't get the passion and you don't get the support when you're reading some cold text as you do when you hear these men on the other end of the phone line saying, yeah, that's good, go do that. So, Natural Areas shaped me, informed me, guided me, and, with those folks and others in the organization and the journal, that's how you got along in those days. And I think it's a really good foundation, and this organization still means so much to me at this point in my life. They told me I had 2 to 5 minutes, so I'm not going to keep talking and boring you, but I want to say that there was 2 events in my career that I want to kind of reflect on, and one was when I was pretty brand new to the Nature Preserves Commission, and I was going out to do a prescribed burn, one of our first ones, and I invited the fellow who was the forester for the district we were going to burn in, and I was, brand new, freshly scrubbed, excited, as you are when you're 28 years old. Hey, come on out and help us do this prescribed burn, or, bring your staff, come watch us do this. And he said to me, "I hope it rains on you, honey," and he hung up. And I realized at that moment there was going to be people in the natural resources field who did not believe as I believed, who weren't going to, go along with what I wanted to do. And those of you who do know me, don't tell me no. It's not going to work. So, we got around that, and I realized, you find the people who will work with you, and you get things accomplished in spite of those who don't want to see you succeed. The other thing that happened to me was when I was 54 years old, I had a young woman working for me, and we were going through the woods, and we were cutting a fire break, and we both had our chainsaws with us, and I was talking to her about, her future with our agency. And she looked at me and she said, I don't want to be a woman in my 50s still lugging a chainsaw around in the woods. And I'm thinking, hello, woman in her 50s lugging a chainsaw around in the woods. And I thought to myself, this may not be the job for her. And she did leave us on her own accord in a year's time. And I thought, well, it's not for everyone. And in my retirement, I have had people say to me, "Aren't you retired? Why are you at the Prescribed Fire Council meeting? Why are you still involved with the Invasive Plant Council?" It's in my bones, people. It's who I am. It's who I'm going to be until I'm a very, very, very old, cranky lady. And I hope that I'm at least lugging a chainsaw around into my 70s. So, being involved in stewardship and land management is not for everyone. It's definitely not for sissies, but it is something that has meant everything to me in my life. And being with you all, and getting this award in your presence, knowing how you feel that I deserved it, means everything to me. So thank you. Thank you very much.
So I'm trying to go paperless, so unfortunately my eyesight is not what it used to be. So I'm going to try to read some of this stuff from a phone here. With an introduction of the George Fell Award, I think we've had a pretty good description of George Fell, so I don't need to repeat what Mr. Pearson did such an eloquent job describing. But the George Fell Award is our highest honor for lifetime achievement in land conservation for the Natural Areas Association. And it's a real honor for me to be able to hand it out tonight. And the winner of the 2018 George Fell Award is Bill Weeks. So I think instead of just reading text that's been prepared, I'd like to tell some stories. There's some great stories. We need to be better at storytelling in the natural areas profession. John Bacone helped me with some great stories from back when Bill was the Indiana State Director of the Nature Conservancy, the chapter director here in the state of Indiana. He made some amazing things happen here. And one of them is such a neat connection to everything happening tonight, because John just shared with me at dinner that one of these things that I had a story about is even better, because it was at a natural areas conference in Kentucky that John gets a phone call from Bill Weeks, and Bill says, "Hey, I got this idea. We can buy a lot of land. Make a list of the nature preserves that you really want, and we can go raise a lot of money, like maybe $10 million. So you need to make a list, like right now, of what do you want? What are the preserves you want?" And John got off the phone. He was with other guys, and a lot of them probably at this table with him right now at the Natural Areas Conference, and he's like, "Bill's nuts. We're never going to get this money." And they said, well, let's make the list. Like, let's make our wish list of what sites would we really want to go after and protect if we had this kind of money. So they did. Now, the story gets even better. As time goes by, conversations start happening. Bill, as director of the Indiana chapter of the Nature Conservancy, comes over to the Department of Natural Resources and starts talking to the different division directors, folks in different divisions, about this idea of, say, $10 million, public-private partnership to buy natural areas and endow them so that way they can be managed in perpetuity. Now, Bill went to Indiana University, played football at Indiana University, and there was a lot of football stories that were being told. It was an easy, casual way to talk about raising $10 million for land conservation back when that was a lot more money than it is today. That was 30-some years ago. And so there was another division director, like Fish and Game or Fish and Wildlife, who had this Indy Star, the local paper, Indianapolis News. He had a outdoorsy writer that wrote a column in the sports page. And for those of you not from Indiana, a lot of Hoosiers kind of just read the sports page, especially about basketball, getting all the scores, high school, college, professional. And so this guy's name was Bayou Bob, or Bayou Bill. Bayou Bill. Now, John's telling me this story a few months ago, and I'm like, this cannot be real. Bayou Bill? And so Bayou Bill hears about this idea, this public-private partnership for land conservation, and he thought it was a great idea. So he writes a column about it in the sports page. And so it goes out over the weekend, and the following week, the director of the DNR gets this envelope from the governor with this column cut out with a paperclip note, says, I think this is a good idea. And a few meetings later, and it was so. And it was, I think, the first program of its kind in the United States where the Nature Conservancy put money in with public dollars. It was an investment like never seen before in this state. And those nature preserves that were purchased with that land are still there today. They're still high quality, and they were endowed, and there are full-time land managers in the Division of Nature Preserves taking care of them. I think that's worth applause right there. Now, I have another story, and I talked to Bill about this when we saw each other a while back, and apparently my details are wrong. So I'm just going to say that right now. But Bill said, you know, that's not exactly how it happened, but your story's so much better than mine. Just roll with it. And so there's an old-growth forest here in Indiana, and it's amazing. It's called Calvert and Porter. It was in Alton Lindsay's Natural Areas of Indiana under Beckville Woods, I think. Just an amazing natural area. And Bill was trying to get it protected. Well, the landowner he wanted more money, and there was a timber appraisal done, and there's a whole other crazy story that goes along with that. But, so Bill notices that this guy is his car is kind of a piece of crap. I mean, it's kind of beat up, it's barely running. And Bill says, well, you know, it looks like you might need a new car. And the guy says, you know, I've always wanted a white Cadillac. And Bill had a car dealer on the board of trustees of the Nature Conservancy. And of course, you can't give someone more than appraised value. The Nature Conservancy couldn't give more than appraised value for the land. But the car dealer could make a good deal, you know. And he had a vested interest in seeing this get protected. And so Bill calls this guy and says, hey, I need to get this deal done. Is there something we could do to get this deal done? Because we can't give more than appraised value. And this guy he says, well, I'm an Oldsmobile dealer. I don't sell Cadillacs. And Bill says, well, what can we do? What can we do to make this happen? And he says, well, I just took in this Eldorado on trade, and I paid like nothing for it. And so he got him his white Cadillac. We got Calvert and Porter Nature Reserve. It's state dedicated, it's still there, and it's amazing. And the reason I tell that story is I heard that story pretty much that way. The details might change over time. I heard that story in 1997 when I was started working as a heritage mapper with the Division of Nature Preserves. And I thought, that is somebody that I'd like to be like. That's somebody who cares about getting it done. And when someone says no, which apparently you don't want to do to Joyce either, you find a way to get it done because the place is still there and it will be there for thousands of years. I haven't even gotten to the point where Bill goes off to Washington, D.C. He's one of the leaders of the Nature Conservancy for many years. And one of the things that the nomination committee wrote back was, this guy literally wrote the book on conservation. So Saving the Ark, published in the 1990s, Bill systematically goes through the threats and systems of threats, this whole Nature Conservancy methodology of how to address land conservation at a landscape scale, and goes through multiple projects and how they got the deal done. And one of the things about Bill is he's so humble, but he knew a long time ago that you get more done when you let other people take the credit. And it was the local people in the state chapters. Bill got deals done nationwide, but the credit always went to the people at the chapter level because conservation is a local thing. And so it's challenging when you're in DC to get conservation done locally. But Bill figured that out. And those local chapters got amazing things done, like the Tallgrass Prairie Preserve in Oklahoma, 30,000 acres of tallgrass prairie with a bison herd that's owned and managed by the Nature Conservancy today. Without Bill Weeks, we would not have that. My children would not have that. Our grandchildren would not have that. It's kind of amazing. Now, I probably have a lot more notes here, but I think you guys probably would rather hear Bill than me. So please help me congratulate Bill Weeks.
Well, Lisa didn't tell me I had 2 to 5 minutes to say whatever I wanted to say. In fact, she said I could either say something or not. But I'm standing in front of the microphone, and I figure I need to do something to contribute to this effort. I really am tremendously honored to receive this award, and particularly in George Fell's name. I told Arthur that I've heard his name since I started working in conservation in 1982. I knew almost nothing of what he told me. I knew some things. I knew he had been president of the Nature Conservancy, but I didn't know much of that story. And I guess I want to start by echoing what Arthur Piercy suggested, and I've suggested it in other talks, and I also heard it from Cliff in the opening plenary for this conference. There's lots and lots of reasons to protect natural areas, and we've all, those of us who are advocates for that cause, we've all used every argument we could think of, whether it's ecosystem services or the importance of avoiding extinction or spiritual refreshment. But really the most durable argument, the one that is unassailable, is that we protect these things because we love them. And that argument, I think, will hold for so high a percentage of people that we need to persuade to do this work, because someplace in most of us, genetically, I swear, is a love for the natural world. That love for the natural world is the message that's the easiest to spread, and it is a message. By the way, the other thing Cliff said is in the opening plenary was that we needed to pay attention to getting our message outside of this group, and that's absolutely right. But man, every now and then, isn't it a pleasure to sit in a room full of kindred spirits? It's especially when they're mostly on their best behavior. For me, coming this evening and seeing so many people that I've worked with and have been friends with for longer than anyone has a right to work with somebody and be friends with them is just such a pleasure. So I'll say that. I will say just a minute more about, you know what would really be fun? And we should do it sometime. We should really tell stories about land acquisition. To me, the point of the story of, of the acquisition of what's now called Calvert and Porter Woods, actually, we did better than get it for less than appraised value. Literally, we bought it for $85,000 less than its $200,000 appraised value. And the key was, one, at the time we didn't have the money, persuading the landowner we couldn't pay the full value. Two, understanding that the landowner really someplace deep inside wanted to protect that land. It had been protected by his family. It was a source of pride. At some level, he really wanted to do it. And then three, to put the vision in this person's mind of something other than the difference between $200,000 and essentially $115,000. And the difference was that car driving up the driveway. And the truth is, I did worse than Cliff said in that particular deal. I was sitting in the guy's living room, and I had gone actually to offer to buy his son's plane. This is when we had time to do deals. I knew a lot about this guy. I had been to see him 5 or 6 times. And his son's plane was sitting across the street from his house for sale, and nobody was buying it. And so I thought, well, you know, maybe we could raise money to buy the plane. We could use it to do natural area surveys or something, and, you know. And so I offered to buy the plane, and he says, what do I care whether my son's plane sells or not? And it wasn't actually at that meeting, but not too long after, I was trying to persuade him how selling the property for less than its value would work from a tax perspective for him. Remember this, those of you who have to argue for your budgets. At the time, the top tax rate was 50%. It had just moved from 70%. So, we had real arguments to make. If you sell this thing to us for $100,000, you're going to get a big tax deduction, and it will help make up the difference, especially if you consider the capital gains savings that you make. So I make this pitch to him, and he agrees to go see his accountant with me. And I said, he has an accountant. This is going to work. And no, this guy hadn't paid taxes in about 4 years. And we were really sunk. And he felt kind of bad about it and offered to buy us lunch. And that's when we went in his car, which he commented was kind of rusty. And I forgot about that. But the next time I went to see him, and I offered $5,000 more, so I was starting to, chip away at my margin to buy this property, and $5,000 more wasn't going to do it. And then I said, well, what if we bought you a new car? That's what I said. What if I bought you a new car? And he said, what kind of car? And I thought, oh my God, he's going to say Rolls Royce or something. I'm not going to be able to do it. And he says, actually, he doesn't say white Cadillac, though I love that story. White Cadillac is great. He says, how about a new 98? And then I knew we had the deal made. So I did those deals for a long time. It's funny to get an award for, I have worked hard at this work, but man, I feel like the luckiest person in the world because I've had a career working at something that I believe in deeply. So it's funny to get an award for doing something that you love so much. But if there's something that I've contributed to it, it's the ability to make connections like this. And that started with making deals, and I made lots and lots of deals in Indiana, and man, we could tell stories all night. I heard John this morning talk about a deal that we made for a little woods down in southern Indiana, and just an odd thing that we threw out that absolutely made the deal. I went on to Washington, and what I was interested in there was seeing eventually to the protection of larger landscapes within which natural areas could survive better. And we worked at that a good deal of time. And I also worked with trying to enable a lot of other people to make deals, and that was terrific. As I told the people at my table, I really thought I was done with conservation after 21 years with the Nature Conservancy, and I had given a lifetime of service to it. And I went back to practicing law, which I'd done. Within 2 years, I realized that conservation wasn't done with me. Whatever I thought about me being done with it, it wasn't done with me. And I've spent the last, now that is since 2005, so it's almost 14 years, back practicing law, but practicing law for conservation, where I've been trying to help other people do conservation deals. And when I've been lucky, we've been trying to build the infrastructure from which conservation can be done. And that's also been a terrific privilege. That's maybe more than you needed to know, and maybe I have to tell you so that I could justify to myself why I should be honored this way. I am truly honored, and I thank you very much.